What's up, guys, and welcome to a brand new show here at Neo Vintage Games, and it's the Neo Vintage Retro Recap. Now, for you guys who don't know what this show is, basically, we run through the biggest stories in retro gaming and niche gaming. If you would like to hear more mainstream stuff talking about, PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo, we do have a dedicated podcast for that goes live every Monday on this channel, so subscribe if you're interested in that. But on this show, it's going to be dedicated to talking about stories all about the retro gaming community and stuff that kind of go under the radar that people don't really talk about. And I have 4 really awesome stories that I'm excited to jump into. So let's just get into it. And it's basically about the Dreamcast Mini possibly being on the horizon. So let's get into the story. Sega creative producer Yosuke Okunari spoke about the future of the company's mini consoles in a Famitsu interview as translated by Silicon Era. For the next mini, we are considering everything that has been imagined by everyone, Okunari said. The Game Gear Micro is the only domestically sold one in Japan. So when we do the next one, I feel like the project scope should be much bigger as we gaze upon the world. So we won't be able to release it at this time this year, 2 years after the Mega Drive Mini, which is an awesome console, and I'll get into that after. We can't make it that quickly. I think for the next one, we may go for a concept close to the Mega Drive Mini, or I have to say some names. It might be a SG-1000 Mini or a Dreamcast Mini. Now, this is really, really awesome. I'm a pretty big Sega fan, and so I would love another mini console for them, especially considering the fact that the Sega Genesis Mini that they did was just so phenomenally done, and an amazing collection of game quality, console hardware design. So everything about it was fantastic. So the idea that we can get another one officially from Sega with that high quality emulation sounds really, really fantastic. I would love a Dreamcast Mini because obviously there's certainly that kind of nostalgic demand for that. There's some amazing games on that, a lot of great first party stuff, some decent third party stuff as well. So I think they could put together a pretty good Dreamcast collection and kind of release it, and it do really, really well for them. I'd be really interested to see what they do with the controller, because again, it has that memory card slot into it. It's a very obtuse kind of controller, not as simple as the Genesis controller, so having controller pack-ins might be a little bit more of an expensive affair for them. But yeah, Dreamcast Mini would be absolutely fantastic. The cool thing about the SG-1000 Mini is it would basically put a lot of eyes on games that people didn't really know about. SG-1000 is not really known here, especially in America, so if they were able to do a mini console for that, I think that would do wonderful things in terms of a lot of the other mini consoles that have gotten released that have kind of exposed people to newer games. So I think either one is an excellent option, but obviously the Dreamcast Mini, as one of my favorite consoles of all time, is definitely the kind of direction that I think they should go in personally, coming off of the Sega Genesis Mini, as long as it keeps up that high level of quality. So I think that's something worth keeping your eye on. Now, I saw that kind of floating around, people talking about it. It seems like Sega's at least receptive to the idea, and they're thinking about it, and I'm just glad that they're not turned off to the mini console. I think the Sega Genesis Mini did pretty well. Obviously, it's not putting up Nintendo numbers or anything like that, but it did a hell of a lot better than, I'm sure, than the PlayStation 1 Mini or whatever they call that thing. So yeah, Sega doing great things. The next story is one of the bigger ones that was happening in the retro gaming community this week, and it's basically the Analogue Duo was announced. Now, Analogue is a company that releases really, really high-end console experiences where you can play your old games on new hardware, and it basically extracts the best quality image from those games as possible. So let's get into the story. So Analogue, the high-end retro console creators, announced its next major console. The company has revealed the Analogue Duo, its take on the NSC console or NEC console, the Turbo Duo, the PC Duo Engine are in Japan and France. The original console lets you play both HuCard and CD-ROM games, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing any of this stuff. So the Analogue Duo releases in 2021, and it's the company's first console with a disc drive, which is really, really awesome that they're willing to go this far at this point. It's a very far departure from some of the stuff they've done in the past. It's compatible with almost every NEC game format, including TurboGrafx 16, PC Graphics, Super Graphics HuCard, as well as the TurboGrafx, PC Engine, and Super Arcade CD-ROMs. It retails for only $200, which I think is a fantastic price range. Outputs a 1080p signal, supports many controller types, including the original controllers for those respective consoles. It's going to launch with black and white versions. Also, it's going to do all the little, accoutrements you've come to expect, like scan lines and stuff like that. Also, Analogue announced that the company plans to release an adapter for the Analogue Pocket that lets owners play TurboGrafx 16, PC Engine, and Super Graphics HuCard games on the company's FPGA handheld. So I've always been incredibly impressed with everything that Analogue does. They haven't let me down so far. I personally don't own any of their consoles, but I have always really wanted one. It's just a little bit out of my price range right now. But yeah, they do fantastic stuff, and I'm so glad to see them continuing on this track. The console designs are always of the highest quality. The emulation, or let me rephrase that, because again, these are not ripping ROMs or anything, or like something you'd see like with the Retron and stuff like that. It's actually running these games natively on the hardware, which is absolutely fantastic, and why you can get such high quality gaming experiences from their consoles. So yeah, I'm really feeling what they're talking about here. There's so many fantastic games that you'll be able to play on this console, so the amount of compatible consoles is perfect. I think the price proposition is completely right, $200. That's actually pretty low for what I expect Analogue to typically launch at, so that's really awesome. But yeah, from a spec perspective, it looks, high end and stuff like that, and I love the console design, and I have some images here that you could take a look at. Yeah, the design looks phenomenal, and yeah, shout out to Analogue for keeping doing that, and I hope that they release more consoles in the future. I'm curious to, honestly, the most interesting thing to me on this is that kind of adapter that they're going to be releasing. I think it's going to retail for about like $30 or something like that, that kind of brings compatibility to the Analogue Pocket. That's very interesting. I'm curious to see how that tech works, and I'm sure we're going to get a lot of breakdown videos and tech explanations on YouTube that I'm going to be checking out. And if you're interested, let me know, and I'll link you some stuff that I might be able to find if you want additional information. But down below, I'll have the story to this linked down below, so you can check out the Analogue official site. Pre-orders are not live just yet, so if you're interested in getting this console, you might want to turn your email subscriptions on, follow them on social media and stuff like that, because they haven't announced, I don't think, when pre-orders are going to be going live. Third story is actually an interesting one, and this is actually a game that I saw kind of floating around the ether probably for, a year ago at this point. Some people did some videos on it, but it kind of resurfaced, and we got some more information on there, and the guy who's in charge of this released a new video relating to it. So a story popped up in late September that I need to talk to you guys about. There is now an online Smash-like NES game, and yes, I know that sounds like a handful, and you're like, what the heck are you talking about? So at Roger Bidden, and I'm so sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Bidden, I don't know, on Twitter announced this game, and here's the details. So it's called Super Tilt Bro. It's an NES game, fully compatible on your NES console. Secondly, the cartridge actually has a Wi-Fi chip inside that you can play online with other people on your NES. It's still a prototype, but you guys have to go support this. It's also playable in browser on a website that I'm going to have linked down below. So if you would like to try out this game, you don't have an NES, you don't intend on getting the kind of homebrew market and buying the actual cartridge, there is a browser version that you can play, so I'll go link that down below. Really fun game. This is definitely something I'm trying to get my hands on. Super dope stuff. I just love when people play with old tech and kind of play around with what is actually possible. I am not going to lie to you guys and act like I didn't know this was possible, to be honest with you. I didn't know you could just put a Wi-Fi card into a cartridge and, be able to make that work. But this is just such phenomenal stuff. The game looks really awesome. And again, I saw some videos floating around probably a year ago or so of people playing this game, so it's kind of been around for a bit. I think there's been beta videos going back to probably like 3 years ago or something like that. So this is a passion project that he's been working on for quite some time, but I just wanted to highlight it and give him a shout out that I think he's doing phenomenal things, and I definitely think you guys should go check this out. So the last story is going to be the main story of the show, and this is a console that I have spoken about before, and I've always had kind of mixed feelings about it, and I've definitely warmed up to the idea of it as I've read more about it. So we got some updates regarding the Intellivision Amico. Now before I get into the details, obviously Intellivision, absolute legends in the gaming industry. They go back to the early 80s, and they were killing it back then, absolute legends. Amazing games on their older consoles, and so it looks like they're trying to jump back into the console market with the Amico, and we have some really interesting details regarding it. So according to the videos that they released, the console will run on a new Qualcomm Snapdragon processor. They reaffirmed their focus on family gamers as well. So here's some more details we got. They added 40 independently controlled LEDs on the console base, 12 LEDs on each console controller, with a total of 64. So the controllers can charge for 2 hours, and batteries last for about 4 to 6 hours, which is a little bit on the lower end, kind of a long charge time, but that's alright. It probably doesn't have the most state-of-the-art battery technology that's out of there, but I'm not mad at that. The controllers have color capacitive touchscreens, gyroscopes, force feedback, Speakers, microphones, wireless contact, charging. I think that's the most awesome part of it personally. The 2 controllers nest inside the console base, which enables them to charge. You can also charge a controller with a USB-C cable. The controllers have 4 shoulder buttons and a touch wheel with a button. The home button lets you pause or exit the game easily. The Amico also has an HDMI outport, and USB-C connector, power connection, micro SD expansion slot for more memory, which is awesome. You could store up to 50 games on the device, which is phenomenal. Radio frequency identification, or RFID connectivity, offers a new way to unlock features in games to interact with the console. You simply have to take an object and tap it on the console to unlock something. The console's cooling is passive, meaning that it can naturally dissipate heat without a fan, and they also cap things off with some more partnerships that they're having with the console launch. So there's some interesting stuff on here. Obviously, originally this console was supposed to release, I believe, on the 10th or something like that. But they had to delay it. And I've always said, I'm not mad at delays as long as we get a better product in the end. And it seems that specifically Tommy Tallarico and his team are really, really passionate about this project, and they really, really love what they're doing. And I'm so happy about that, because originally when you see these kind of consoles announced, my immediate result is like, oh god, is this like a scam or something like that? And I'm not going to start crapping on certain other companies, but there's another console that's trying to launch right now, that they're not showing a lot of stuff off, and there's a lot of sketch, weird funding stuff going on there. But I'm glad with the Intellivision and Amico, for the most part, everything seems on the up and up. The most interesting thing from a tech perspective on my end is definitely those controllers. There's a lot of interesting tech going on there. I like what I'm seeing there. I like the fact that it charges right into the console and stuff like that. The console seems well designed. It's interesting that it's going to have a passive cooling system, but judging by the nature of the games that it's going to be running, I have no doubt that this thing won't be having overheating issues or something like that. This console's not going to be playing like Shadow of Mordor or anything like that, so I don't think it needs any kind of heat sinks, liquid heat dispersion, or anything like that. So I'm not mad about that. It seems like the console's designed well. It seems like they got some good tech and some real talent working on this team putting this console together. So I'm not mad at that. Controller looks good. The console, what I like about it is so different. The LEDs on the console, would like to see how that looks in real life. From some of the video mock-ups, sometimes it reminds me of like the fake consoles people would make on like YouTube, being like the Xbox 720 and stuff like that. So it looks a little bit like that, but once I get my real eyes on it, I would love to see how these kind of LEDs look. And there's a way that they could really make some kind of cool futuristic family console kind of work out ultimately in their favor. Lastly, obviously, so the hardware, I'm not mad at it. From a partnership and software, and there's some cool arcade games that they're offering on here. I have faith in this console to be able to find its kind of niche audience and stuff like that, as long as they hyper focus on that. And it seems like they understand the kind of gamer that they'll be able to get with this console, and it's the family gamer, honestly. People who have that kind of familiarity with the Intellivision brand from back in the day. The ability to be able to say to a family, hey, every single game available on our console will be family friendly. You don't have to worry about that. There's no weird things on the eStore that you're going to click and then you're going to start playing. You're like, my kids can't play this. So I think there's something to be said there. I'm not a family person. I don't have any kids. So when they announced that kind of thing, I wasn't really sold on it, but after talking to some people in the comment section down below, you guys kind of convinced me that, you know what, there is a way that they could make this work. The only thing is, I just do still have some concerns about the nature of some of the games on the console and how dated some of them look. And again, there's nothing wrong with less ambitious, technical games. Hey, I play 8 and 16-bit things constantly, even new stuff that launch on the Nintendo Switch eStore that are, modeled after NES and Super Nintendo and Genesis games. So I have no problem with like retro-styled games. But again, as I mentioned last time, some of them remind me a little bit of kind of like the Xbox arcade games from back in the day. And in 2020, or at least when this console will launch, 2021, I'm not sure how much those games will resonate with the average audience, but to be honest, with the family gamer, maybe they're not looking for the most technical things in the world. They're just looking for a lot of fun to be had. And I think, honestly, they're doing the right things to make this console work. When I say, hey, breaking into the console industry is a very, very difficult thing to do. But if you're going to try to do it, the important thing is to have a well-designed console, to have a whole bunch of different partnerships, to listen to the feedback of the fans, to foster those partnerships and relationships and to have exclusives. And to be honest with you, Intellivision Amico is kind of checking all those boxes, to be honest. So, I mean, I'm wishing the best for them, and I'm still a little bit worried about the price proposition. I think it's still a little bit high, personally. At about $300, yeah, you can get a Nintendo Switch and stuff like that. But again, it does come with 2 controllers built in, whatever. So I think there's certain ways to kind of counterbalance that. And also, you can have games natively installed in the console and stuff like that. I think it's going to launch with some games, which also kind of differentiates it from what the Switch is doing, which obviously you spend $300 with the Switch, you have to buy games on top of that. So yeah, there's a lot going for the Intellivision Amico. Personally, I have some apprehension about certain details regarding it, but I think generally speaking, they're doing a fantastic job with this console. And I just wanted to highlight them because I think the passion that Tommy Tallarico and his team are showing regarding this console is worth commendation. And obviously, Intellivision as a company are absolute legends, and I think they're deserving of all the respect in the world, especially as retro gaming fans. You got to support these guys when they come back. Will I buy this console myself? I'm not 100% sure yet. Again, $200, $300, that's a lot to drop. It's going to be into 2021. I want to be kind of fresh off dropping a whole bunch of money on the Series X, on the PS5, and a crap ton of games and controllers for those things. So I'm going to be a little bit strapped to cash. I don't know if necessarily I'm going to fork out all that money for the Intellivision Amico, but at some point in the future, when I gather a little bit of money together, or maybe it goes on sale or something like that, maybe then I could easily see myself forking out a little bit of money to give this a shot, try out with some friends, see what people think. So yeah, ending off the show, I hope you guys enjoyed. We had some really, really awesome retro stories to talk to you guys about. So basically, in terms of a release schedule, obviously this show is kind of based on my original news show that I was doing, that I did, a dozen or so episodes on the channel on a weekly basis. This show, since it's based on mostly niche and retro stories, I'm going to have to do the show as frequently as these stories pop out. So if 3 or 4 stories break in a week, or even 2 big stories break in a week, sure, I can do a show on a weekly basis. But if it's a slow week and there's not really much to talk about, then I won't do a show that week, rather than give you guys kind of like a subpar show. So this show is going to be as a kind of, as the news breaks, the news show will come out kind of basis. So I'm going to try my best as much as possible to have it on a regular interval. Obviously, if you would like to see us talk about games on a regular interval, we have our weekly podcast that, every Monday without fail goes up. But this show is going to be a little bit more infrequent, just so I can let kind of stories build up a little bit to have lots to talk to you guys about. This show can range anywhere from 15 minutes to 25 minutes. Sometimes the news show back in the day would go up to 45 minutes, but again, that's entirely dependent on the nature of the stories that I'm talking about any given week. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Leave a comment down below, and start that discourse. Let me know what you thought about the different stories. What do you think about the show? What changes would you like done? Like it if you liked it. Share it with some other retro fans. We're trying to grow the channel as much as possible, and we would love to have a lot of retro games fans also come onto the channel, talk to us about some things. We'd love to collaborate, talk to you guys about stuff. So hit us up down below. Let us know what you think. Until next time, this is Jabril from Retro Recap. Love you guys. Bye.